This morning on 5 News, the Supreme Court makes a major ruling limiting access to gender-affirming care for minors. Up next, we'll have a detailed report with the latest on how this decision impacts Arkansas families.
As you're waking up in northwest Arkansas, quite a bit of fog there in Bentonville, maybe a little bit in Springdale. That'll eventually thin out, though. We'll see pretty hot conditions. We'll talk about that further here coming up.
And a court case that has captured the nation. Cam Reed has been cleared of murder and manslaughter in the death of her police officer boyfriend.
First, a live look outside in Fayetteville. A bit of a foggy morning today, but still a good one. 5 News This Morning starts now.
Covering news where you live. This is 5 News This Morning.
Well, hey, good morning. We hope you're off to a great start here on this Thursday. So just one more day until Friday. We're almost there, folks.
Friday Eve.
Friday Eve, yeah. And it's been busy, like so busy with all of this weather. We're ready just for some, true fashion summer.
Yeah, usually by this time of year, things quiet down around here, but it's certainly been anything but quiet. That will end later tonight, really already, but later end tonight officially. And then it's just very hot and very muggy. We'll show you what's going on right now. Very isolated activity. It was a lot more active about 1, 2 a.m. It was the line that kind of basically went right along I-40. But for now, you can see it's kind of hard. You have to pick out some cells here. You can see a little one here in southeastern Logan County, maybe a little one here into portions or just west of LaFleur County. So again, we'll zoom in here to these cells. You can see again a little bit southeast of Paris there, maybe some moderate to heavy rainfall. Northwest of Stigler, they're just out of the area, maybe some pockets of moderate rainfall. Not expecting anything too crazy out of these cells, but just to keep in mind that if you live south of I-40, maybe waking up to a little bit of rain. In northwest Arkansas, the bigger story is the fog settling in down to 0 mile visibility in Bentonville, down to 0 mile visibility in Siloam Springs. Fayetteville, not too shabby, but it's really the northwest corner of the state where we saw a lot of that heaviest rain yesterday. That's where the densest of the fog is for us this morning. Eventually, once that thins out, it's going to be kind of a soupy day. It'll feel like the upper 80s and low 90s this afternoon in northwest Arkansas. In the River Valley, could feel like the low triple digits this afternoon, and it's only going to get a little bit hotter starting tomorrow. So we'll talk about that further here coming up in your full forecast. Now we'll take a look at traffic here. We'll go over to one of those foggy scenes, on Highway 412 in Siloam Springs. It seems like Siloam Springs every day is pretty foggy, and that's just kind of how it is. But again, we'll be keeping an eye on the fog as well as that forecast. We'll have that for you coming up in about 15 minutes.
Now allows states to make the determination as to whether or not they will bar transgender minors or anyone, to the court's point, from obtaining certain medical treatment for gender transition therapy.
Well, in a landmark ruling, the divided U.S. Supreme Court upheld a Tennessee law that restricts certain medical treatments for transgender minors.
In a 6-3 decision, the court ruled that Tennessee's law does not violate the Constitution's equal protection guarantee. So how does this ruling impact gender-affirming care here in Arkansas?
5 News reporter Jacob Luthi is giving us the background on what it means for the natural state. Good morning, Jacob.
Good morning. With the latest U.S. Supreme Court ruling now backing a similar law in Tennessee, Arkansas may have a stronger legal argument to revive the SAFE Act in court. Brandt v. Griffin challenges Arkansas's 2021 SAFE Act, which bans gender-affirming care for minors. A federal judge struck it down in 2023, calling it unconstitutional, but the state appealed. Now, Arkansas Attorney General's office says Wednesday's Supreme Court ruling could sway the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals decision. The ACLU brought the case, calling the law discriminatory, harmful, and unjust. In a statement after the Supreme Court ruling, the ACLU of Arkansas says, quote, while today's decision is deeply painful, it is not the end of the road for transgender youth, their families, or the fight for bodily autonomy. Scrimeti does not give states a green light to pass any and all anti-trans laws. Now, Jerry Cox, Executive Director of Family Council, the Little Rock-based conservative organization, says the ruling is a step in the right direction.
Since the Arkansas law is virtually identical to the Tennessee law, if the Tennessee law is constitutional, which the court says it is, then that would mean that the Arkansas law is constitutional as well. So then it's just a matter of the law actually being followed by people in the medical community and being enforced.
The ACLU says gender-affirming care for transgender youth remains legal here in Arkansas while they await a ruling I'm Brant V. Griffin. Jacob Luthi, 5 News.
All right, thanks for that, Jacob. Well, a new state law is giving Arkansas families with special needs children more financial security for the future.
The change affects teacher retirement benefits and could impact thousands across the state. Before the law, retired educators could not leave pension benefits directly to their children without risking access to Medicaid or waiver services.
For attorney Thomas Smith and his wife Carrie, a retired teacher, their son Grady has special needs, and they say the rules left them with an impossible choice: secure his future or protect his care.
I think it's just important to know that what she worked for so many years is something that will be available to him even when we're gone.
Well, the bill passed with bipartisan support and is now law. Supporters are calling it a lasting legacy for families. Well, a proposal to fund a safe camping site for Fayetteville's unhoused population has been voted down, but city leaders say the work to find solutions is far from over. The Safe Camping Initiative would have set aside $630,000 to create secure camping sites with housing support services like tents, cabins, and staffing. Ward 2 council member Sarah Moore, who sponsored the plan, says it was meant as a short-term solution with a long-term goal. But the Fayetteville City Council voted it down, citing concerns about the need for a broader regional response.
Some of my colleagues are concerned about wanting to make sure that there's a regional approach, and I agree that we do need to have a regional approach where, every city is contributing in each of the counties.
Right now, Fayetteville leaders plan to work with regional partners on new housing support solutions.
5 News coverage of the Razorbacks is sponsored by Arvest Bank.
Well, the Razorbacks gave it their all in Omaha, but late LSU rally in the bottom of the 9th, sending them home.
Yeah, our 5 News sports team is on the ground in Omaha with the latest on this heartbreaking loss.
Heartbreak or heroics. There's no halfway for the Hogs, and unfortunately on Wednesday night at Charles Schwab Field in Omaha, Nebraska, it was an all too familiar feeling for Razorback fans. It was heartbreak, Robin.
Yeah, and this was a game where the offense actually showed up multiple times trying to claw the team back into it, especially after Landon Beidelshees had a very strong start there, but honestly came down to the 9th inning.
It really did, just a wave of momentum each way. Razorbacks had it fully, but it all came down to 3 crucial mistakes in that final frame from the Razorbacks. The first of that trio came with 1 out when there was a missed throw to first base, which allowed the runner to move to second and get into scoring position. The second was perhaps the most head-scratching, as the Golden Spikes finalist, the Dick Hauser Trophy finalist, the Hiva Aloy, decided to pick the runner off at third instead of going for the game-ending double play at second and first.
I haven't talked to him about it. I guess he felt like he moved too far to his right for Cam to turn it. I don't know. He's an average runner. He's not a flyer, but he's not slow either. So I don't know.
And then finally, Charles Davalon had a shot at a pop fly into left field. However, he slipped. The ball hit off his shoulder, fell to the ground, and that allowed the 2 tying runs to score for the Tigers. And from there, all the momentum was in the Bayou Bengals corner. They walked it off shortly thereafter.
The ball, because I had a straight-on view of it, it was hit hard, obviously, and it was kind of hooking and sinking. But it looked like Charles slipped, like right at the beginning of taking off for it. And then when he slipped, he probably lost sight of it. And when the balls hit that hard, he was just trying to find it.
Yeah, absolutely devastating end to the season for the Arkansas Razorbacks, who had championship aspirations from the very first game. They got here to Omaha, and yes, it's not the finish that they had hoped for, but Robin, they're still one of the 3 best teams in the country as they finish tonight.
Yeah, and Coach Van Horn said in his press conference that he's not good at goodbyes because he knows that a lot of these guys are going to be going into the draft. That's just how good this team was this season. They gave the Razorback faithful a lot to root for, and to make it to Omaha, that's pretty impressive.
Hopefully he's not good at saying goodbye to the fan base, and we see good old DVH back in the dugout next season. Unfortunately, though, we have to say goodbye one final time from Omaha, Nebraska. For Robin Hearn, I'm Alex Stewart, 5 News Sports.
All right, thanks for that, guys. One continuing coverage. A verdict in the second trial of Karen Reed finds her not guilty in the death of her Boston police officer boyfriend. Reed's first trial, you remember, ended in a mistrial. This all began back in 2022 when Reed was accused of striking her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, with her SUV and leaving him for dead in the snow. Well, Reed's lawyers told the jury they believe O'Keefe was killed in a fight inside a home, and that possibility was never investigated by the lead investigator. Now, she was convicted on a lesser charge, operating under the influence causing serious injury.
I could not be standing here without these amazing supporters who have supported me and my team financially and, more importantly, emotionally.
Reed was sentenced to 1-year probation and now faces a civil wrongful death lawsuit filed by O'Keefe's family.
Meanwhile, a 7th day of fighting between Israel and Iran. CBS News has learned President Donald Trump has approved plans to attack Iran as well, according to senior U.S. intelligence and defense sources. But so far, no decision on if he will launch those strikes. Sources say that President Trump is waiting to see if Iran will abandon its nuclear program. The State Department says it's begun evacuating non-essential personnel and their families from the U.S. Embassy in Israel. It's warning Americans to leave Iran now as both countries launched more strikes overnight.
Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I've been saying it for a long time. And I think they were a few weeks away from having one.
Yesterday, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to win in the end. Iran's supreme leader said his nation will not surrender, and he threatened irreparable damage if the U.S. gets involved. Well, today marks more than just a date on the calendar. It's a celebration of freedom, legacy, and long overdue justice.
Yeah, Juneteenth shines a light on a powerful moment in American history when the final promise of emancipation reached Galveston, Texas. June 19th marks June 19th, 1865, when Union troops arrived in Texas with life-changing news. Slavery had ended. Though the Emancipation Proclamation was signed 2 years earlier, many in the South didn't learn they were free until the Civil War ended.
Known as Freedom Day or Black Independence Day, Juneteenth has grown into a nationwide celebration, officially becoming a federal holiday in 2021, signed into law by then-President Joe Biden, who designated it as a federal holiday. It expanded its recognition beyond Black America. Well, in honor of Juneteenth, here at home, several events are happening across the state to mark the occasion. From Bentonville to Fayetteville, Arkansans are coming together to celebrate Juneteenth through art, music, and community reflection. Here are some events that are happening this week. In Bentonville, Crystal Bridges will host a day of music, art, and family-friendly activities today from 11 to 4. Then in Fayetteville, the University of Arkansas will hold a celebration June 21st, followed by a festive march and community cookout on June 22nd. All events are free and open to the public.